all got some kind of dog in us, but when it comes to a select few from the world of cinema, they've got a whole damn werewolf in them too. These mythical beings have been a part of humanity's lore for ages, and the way they're displayed on the big screen is truly a work of art, especially when it comes to the transition between man and beast. So in order to honour all the big dogs of the film world, the TV Regent is going to cover the top 25 werewolf transformations in the movie. Sisterly affection is hard to come by, especially if these sisters are actually nuns who happen to be from the universe of the Amityville moon. Now, let me just declare that this movie isn't really that great, and the acting is hilarious at times, but not in a good way. Having said that, the werewolf transformation here is pretty cool. The scene between Francis and Alicia isn't meant to instigate any holy love, but rather terror, and it does a pretty good job at doing that, you know?
Sister Francis.
Right from the moment where Francis begins her werewolf transformation, we know things are gonna go south. Alicia is obviously shocked as she witnesses this horrific scene, but I feel like she should have used the small window she had to get the heck out of there. Now, when it comes to the transformation in itself, it is pretty cool. I know the effects were limited by budget, but I guess that's where the lack of lighting came into play. We were made to experience the transformation without clearly seeing it, which added a hint of mystery to an already deadly phenomenon. See, this is why I don't go to church. It's kind of funny that the first entry from Underworld in this video is from the latest installment, which in my opinion isn't a very good one. I mean, sure, we got to see Celine again and there are some great action sequences, but the story's been drained by the writers more than the humans get drained by the vampires. The final battle between Celine and Marius was an intense one, but the focus for me is on the transformation. Marius casually turning into a werewolf even while he's being bombarded with bullets was a pretty cool moment, but his moment to shine happens when he drinks the last of Michael's blood and turns into the mega werewolf. Now, I'm going to admit that I wasn't a fan of the way Michael got killed off because that's just insulting to the character, especially because he was such a crucial element of the OG films. Having said that, seeing Marius turn into that deadly monstrosity was definitely a sight to behold. If not anything else, this scene did bring back some nostalgia, and that was good enough to include it. Who says that vampire transformations always need to be elongated sessions that last longer than a whole song? The same also applies to transformations like Jacob's, which only last for a couple of seconds. I'd say Quinn's transformation from Underworld Awakening had a great tone, and the pacing was phenomenal because you get to see the whole transition from start to finish, while also somewhat understanding how it must be feeling to the werewolf in question. His monster design is also quite intimidating, so when you see the final product, you're left feeling a little uneasy. The camera movements following the actor as he stumbles across the hall while turning into a bloodthirsty beast was also a nice touch added by the director. You could even say that this sequence took the art of the werewolf transformation to a whole other level. See, this is how you can make CGI work to your advantage. We know that the werewolf is a creation of visual effects, but when he's presented in such a manner, you can't help but applaud the team behind this scene. Okay, now that the Underworld franchise has started, it's been on a spree, hasn't it? Just because you see a corpse lying on the ground doesn't mean it's not going to turn into a deadly werewolf. That's exactly what happens here when Marcus, Victor and Amelia come to the scene of an apparent massacre. Of course, the culprit William had other plans in mind when he did this, as could be seen when all the bodies started to turn into deadly werewolves. Also, I know they're technically called Lycans, or William's first generation, but I'm just going to stick to werewolves because that'll help me maintain consistency with the rest of the entries. There are lots of transformations happening here, so you can feel free to choose your favourite one from among them. My personal pick has got to be the dude who transforms after getting rid of one of the vampires, only to have his head chopped off right after. The only thing bad about it is the fact that he couldn't go on to wreak further havoc after giving such an impressive display. A horror icon such as Stephen King was definitely not going to spare the werewolf lore, so it was only a matter of time before we got to see it on the big screen in 1985's Silver Bullet. What's really great about this scene is that we get to witness a reverend transforming into a werewolf, so it really makes you wonder if he was really being Holy Father all this time. As far as the transformation is concerned, it's pretty standard. What adds weight to the sequence is how he smashes the cop's face so brutally. Having a werewolf handling a club as a weapon instead of his teeth or claws has a creepy tone to it. The monster is shown to have intelligence and knows exactly what he's doing or who he's attacking. That's the detail that makes this film unique. Also, Bro went on to reveal that the cop was bald by knocking off his hat. That's a double violation right there. Oh yeah, and how can I not shout out the good old Psycho shower scene reference in his stabbing technique?
But it's not my fault!
See how she deals with trees.
Judy Greer is indeed one of the most underrated actresses of all time. She could have actually become an A-list celebrity, but she became so popular with all her cameos that she ended up becoming one in real life as well. Maybe that's why she was so pissed off in this transformation scene from 2005's Cursed. We've got yet another female transformation on display, which goes on to show how much the TV Regent values equality. The transition scene was pretty cool because we could hear Joni's voice turning from feminine to monstrous as she turned into a werewolf, which totally enhanced the moment. On top of that, I kinda like the fact that her hair came off before she became a monster. Unlike the previous entry where the cop got embarrassed by his baldness, this one has Joni fully embracing the changes happening to her body with vengeance being on her mind the entire time. I'll admit that the final product looks more like a bear than a werewolf, but I'll let it pass because of the great build-up that led to it. When Hugh Jackman's your opponent, the least you can do to combat him is by turning into a werewolf. Velkan didn't really have much of a choice because there's only so much you can do to counter a full moon, but then again, he was up against a freaking Wolverine, so this was the bare minimum. I like that we first see the werewolf, then the human form, and then the actual transformation because it highlights how these monsters function in terms of moonlight. Kate Beckinsale really can't catch a break from werewolves though, can she? First, it's the Lycans from Underworld, and now it's her own brother in Van Helsing. The CGI was pretty good as per 2004 standards, you know, and the fact that we can see Velkan ripping off his own flesh to reveal the monster within has got to be a top 5 moment from the entire film. Yes, there's the added weight of Anna coming to terms with what's happened to her brother, but even then, this has got to be one of the most badass werewolf transformations you'll ever get to see. The TV Regent has always praised OG concepts, so 1941's The Wolfman is no different. Watching Larry Talbot transform into a werewolf for the first time ever was a revolutionary experience for film lovers of the time. We don't get to see a complete transformation as the main focus is on Larry's legs, but even the visuals were quite decent for the time. After all, this is a movie that is more than 80 years old. The slow transitioning of the legs gave us an idea that our heroes lived long enough to become the villain, and the final creature design isn't bad even by today's standards. Sure, maybe some people will make fun of it, but I wonder if they'd feel the same way if they were walking alone in the woods at night and came across this beast all of a sudden. If you want to know how such an effect was achieved from so long ago, the makeup department would take pictures of the makeup process at different times and then put them side by side when editing the film. So when they played through the scene, it just looked like one full take. may have covered the OG earlier, but I must admit the 2010's The Wolfman had a lot more to offer in terms of makeup and transformations. Of course, it's a lot more modern, so it has the benefit of advanced technology, but after looking at abominations like She-Hulk, I'll never take good CGI for granted ever again. Seeing Larry transform for the first time in this film right after his dad does a whole peace out montage was a perfect mixture of mystery and terror. We all knew he was turning into a werewolf, but the way it's presented does make a lot of difference. Plus, I have to include the part where we only see his fangs closing in on his victim a bit later when those puny humans attack him. Yeah, we really need to be more self-aware as a species now, don't we? Werewolf transformations don't always have to be serious or terrifying. Sometimes they can be part of a comedy film, like 1985's Teen Wolf. Scott Howard's awkward transformation perfectly captured the essence of a teenage boy going through adolescence. Even if we skip the metaphor, the scene in itself is technically great. The slow introduction of hair backed by the iconic 80s background score was a great way to have Scott undergo his first transformation, and Michael J. Fox puts in a great performance as well. The best part though has to be when Scott tries to face his dad but opens the door only to find him also in werewolf form. I still can't believe that Mr. Howard's defense was him simply assuming his werewolf genes would skip a generation.
You knew about this and you didn't tell me?
I was hoping I wouldn't have to. Sometimes it skips a generation.
Come back! You stupid bitch!
I don't know if you've seen this film, and honestly speaking, I'm not sure you should either. However, this transformation scene is so freaking scary that it amazes me how the rest of the movie fell so flat in comparison. Ted Harrison turning into a werewolf not only creeped out his sister, but also the entire audience. The few of them that actually bothered to watch this in the cinemas anyway. What really gets to me is Ted's pre-werewolf face, because it's definitely not human despite not being completely monstrous as well. The horror element this brought to his overall transition was amazing, and the eventual transformation was pretty cool as well. It's a shame his sister couldn't be there for him during such an important moment, but I guess not all siblings get each other, do they? Never underestimate the Britishers and their twisted sense of humour. Dog Soldiers is one of the best and ecstatic werewolf films I've ever seen, of which the most memorable moment happens during Captain Ryan's transformation. I like the way they don't show the whole thing and rely on the subtle sounds of his clothes ripping apart. It adds more suspense to the scene, which was clearly shot with intention. The final reveal felt a lot better thanks to this, and it remains iconic even to this day. I just love the moment when Sean Pertwee tries to find a weapon, picks it up, realises it's a stick, and then throws it while saying fetch. What's even more hilarious is the fact that the werewolf actually looked at the stick after hearing that. I guess he still had a bit of good boy genes in him at the time.
Bad dog.
Look, I know this movie isn't exactly a classic, especially considering the work of art that it's the sequel to. However, I can't ignore Seraphine's deadly werewolf transformation for a couple of reasons. The first one is the diversity quota to prove my whole point on equality, and the second one is that it's genuinely a terrifying moment. You know what really creeped me out though? It was seeing her gaze into the moon with those yellow eyes and then watching her face rot into a demonic beast. Female werewolves can definitely be scary, and this scene is a testament to that fact. Also, if you're wondering about why the ankles are positioned so awkwardly, the producers and werewolf creators said they designed their werewolves to be more like big cats with heavily muscled and built bodies. To be honest with you, I kind of like that anatomical design, and not in a weird way. Top 10 time is here, and we're kicking off with another sequence from The Wolfman. Benicio del Toro may be fondly remembered as Brad Pitt with extra seasoning, but but his werewolf transformations in this movie are definitely worth remembering. The scene in question this time is when he's presented to a live audience in the hopes of proving his werewolf claims to be false. Yeah, that was probably not a good idea, was it? But we don't mind because we get to see a great scene. The Doctor definitely should have kept his ego aside for this session because he had an entire transitioning sequence to plan his escape, but instead he took the high and mighty route. As a result of that, not only was his life taken, but his whole flying out of the window comparison came true in the most unfortunate way. Harry Potter's always eager to learn new things, but I'm sure even he wasn't prepared for what Professor Lupin had in store for his class on how to identify a werewolf. This scene is right after the team discovers the rat that Ron had been raising this whole time, so you could say that they were going overboard with the transformations, but if you look at the timing and cinematography on display, then you're not going to be complaining. Apart from the impressive visual effects, there's also an emotional element involved here as Lupin clearly doesn't want to turn into a werewolf. It's literal torture for the poor guy, and you can see the impact it had on his buddy Sirius Black as well. The little fight they had after the turning was also pretty cool because it helped us understand the bodily movements of this beast. The Dark Knight setting accompanied by the spooky angles truly made this a memorable moment in a series that never really fell short of them. Having said that, if you hadn't read the books, this moment had a massive shock factor as well that definitely paid off. The Underworld series comes back with a bang in this epic encounter which involves Lucian taking down a bunch of Lycans in his human form before realizing he had to show off his own unique design to the audience. Of course, we're made aware that he's a slave to the vampires, but that didn't stop our man from flexing his werewolf form with pride as he took off his slave collar to ward off the other Lycans. Also, when Lucian turns to look at Sonia with that heavy animalistic breathing, it's terrifyingly eerie, but awesome at the same time. This scene also shows that werewolves aren't mindless beasts. They recognized Lucian's superiority and backed away immediately. Too bad Victor didn't feel that way. Hugh Jackman's probably the best example of he's got that dog in him, and his transformation into a freaking werewolf is proof of that. If being the freaking Wolverine wasn't enough for him, Bro doubled down on his inner beast instincts and made an epic statement as Van Helsing. Taking down Count Dracula is no easy feat as it requires a monster to take down another. So, what does our hero do? Well, he transforms into a werewolf, of course. See, this is what I was referring to in the Velkin entry. Van Helsing's transformation may not be as detailed as some of the other entries on this list, but the critical timing of this transition is what places it so high up on the list.
My children live.
Then the only way to kill them is to kill you. Got it.
He also transforms a couple of times in this battle, so that also counts. And of course, how can I ignore the fact that Dracula also obliges us with some transformations of his own, although I can't really count them because he's a vampire. I wonder if that makes me guilty of speciesism. Well, you know what, I don't care, because I have to abide by the rules of this video now, don't I? If you're taking on an elder Lycan like Raze, the least you can do is plan an escape. But this vampire clearly had other plans, to get ripped to shreds by his Lycan opponent. We all know how powerful Raze is, but it always feels better when you see it in action. His transformation was anything but standard because it was almost as if he was waiting for this very moment. The control he displayed in this transition was laudable, but I still don't get why that vampire was just standing there and hissing as if that was going to work. Bro must have thought it was Morbin time, but unfortunately, he was 19 years too early.
You're heir to my kingdom, Lawrence. You've always been heir to my kingdom.
For a commercial flop, this movie sure seems to have done well enough on today's list. It's safe to say that this is the final entry from 2010's The Wolfman, because it's the grand finale where both Larry and John face off against each other. The transformations are sublime, and it was great to see Sir Anthony Hopkins playing another bloodthirsty beast after Silence of the Lambs. I love how the transformation is different between the two characters here. While Larry's is slow and painful because he rejects his werewolf persona, John's is quick and seemingly painless because he's not only accepted it, but also thrives off it. Man, this movie really deserves a second chance. Okay, so this is Michael not turning into a complete werewolf because it's his hybrid form, but he's still half lichen, so it counts. Even though this entry lands at number 4, I would have actually placed it higher had it not been for the incomplete transition. This is one of those scenes where you need to witness the whole thing rather than just bits and pieces, but I'll let that pass because the final output was a class apart. Michael would have easily won against Victor too, if only he had enough combat experience. His strength had definitely surpassed the Vampire Lord for sure. Funnily enough though, another incomplete Michael transformation tops this moment, so let me get there in a second. Man, the cops really don't let anyone catch a break these days, do they? It doesn't matter whether you're innocent, guilty, or turning into a werewolf. They just want to make sure they drive you around in their car without looking back to check on all those broken bones. Yeah, that's pretty much what happens to Michael here in a scene that really helped establish a cult following for the Underworld franchise. Yes, this brand has totally dominated today's list, but can you even blame me if the transformations are as awesome as this? While Michael may not have completely turned here, the point is that we get to see the inner workings of a werewolf transformation, and the gothic background further enhanced whatever was happening by a massive margin. Heck, even the diegetic music served as the perfect complement to Michael's pain transformation. This sequence is also true to the lore description of the first transformation faced by a werewolf. Just like in this scene, the lore states that your body will feel like it's being physically ripped apart. No wonder they're always roaring and slashing people to shreds. Okay, this is a movie that you won't hear a lot about unless you're a part of some hardcore horror fan club. But let me tell you something. The Howling has got the scariest and creepiest werewolf transformation of all time. Yeah, the way Eddie transforms in this scene is so menacing and vile that it makes you want to pray for your own soul. Sure, the scene is pretty long. I mean, I could have probably reached Canada by the time Eddie got done turning into a werewolf. However, the length of this scene also allows us to actually digest what's going on. Plus, the detailing is quite impressive for a movie that didn't really have much of a budget. I also have to laud the blonde girl for her politeness here. She made sure to stay there and witness Eddie's complete transformation instead of running away while she still had the chance. Having said that, this scene is a legendary one that's aged like fine wine. But even with all this praise, it still lands at number 2. So, what on earth could have topped this? Yep, there ain't no way I'm going to top this list with anything other than the legendary transformation from An American Werewolf in London. This scene has impact and influence written all over it, which is why most of the entries you've seen before David Kessler's brutal transition were actually inspired by it. I mean, they teach this scene in film school, you know. The practical effects used for this scene were so neat that it managed to top the transformation from The Howling, which would have easily been number 1 under any other circumstance. Man, I still can't believe that both these movies came out in 1981, although I do have to admit the one with the higher budget won. I think another key reason as to why this one edges The Howling is because of the acting. We can totally feel David's pain and want to sympathise for him during this intense sequence, whereas Eddie was pretty much just standing there without much emotion. Either way, John Landis totally revolutionised horror transformations with this scene, and he deserves all the praise in the world for it. After all, it was this scene that led him to direct the iconic music video for Michael Jackson's Thriller. Hope you like this video. Please subscribe to the TV Regent, and here's another video that I know you're going to enjoy.